Does this one work too? Ah, that's the volume I like right there. That's fabulous. All right, I'm going to ask a couple things really quick. If everybody could kind of come in closer and not sit all the way on the fringe edges of the event here, that would be great. Because here's what's going to happen. The fake news is going to find this little gap right here, and they'll go right down behind the one person that's here standing up close, and they'll start snapping pictures, and that's what they'll put out in the Columbus disgrace. So come on in, get tight. We're family here. This is a gun rights rally. It's very safe. Thank you very much. Very good. My name is Chris Dora. I'm the executive director for Ohio Gun Owners, and this is an Ohio Gun Owners, Ohioans for Concealed Carry, and Ohio Carry event. On behalf of all three of those organizations, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day and coming here and standing and being counted amongst the opposition to this gun control agenda that we face. I'm going to introduce our first speaker here, and this is my ruling elder from the church that I go to. It's called Southwest Ohio Reformed Presbyterian Church down in Mason, Ohio. His name is Scott Damrow. Government gets its authority from somewhere. It is our contention that they get it from their creator as well. And so we are going to start this rally off by asking the Lord's blessing on this event with Scott Damrow. If you could all remove your hats and bow your head. Thank you.
Psalm 3. Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. Many are they who rise up against me. Many are they who say of me, there is no help for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and the one who lifts up my head. I cried to the Lord with my voice. He heard me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you have struck all my enemies on the cheekbone. You have broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing is upon your people. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today confessing to you against our nation, even in our own state, killing and maiming in the name of Satan, death, self-glory, and revolution. We have seen other evil men shamefully use such events to push sinful agendas and goals that you do not endorse, setting in motion unjust legislation that seeks to damage the citizens' right to life, liberty, and property. They have clapped at the death of the innocent and sought to expand the ways of death and tyranny. Worst of all, Father, they have mocked our prayers to you, and in so doing have mocked you, Father. Given all this, Father, we might become discouraged if we did not have your word and the righteousness of Jesus, who covers all our sins and meets all of our needs. By these, we are shielded from the fiery darts of the evil one, and his earthly followers who fight vainly against you. In the name of Jesus, hear us, O Father, when we find ourselves in distress and we cry out to you. Deliver us and give us peace in our hearts, minds, bodies, families, state, and country. Give us the power and the courage to face the enemy. May our faces be lifted up to you so that we may see your glory displayed against your enemies. May we lay down at night knowing that it is you who sustains us, watches over us, even when there are thousands surroundings set against us. Make us see, as did Elisha, the angels of God surrounding us, watching them blind our enemies, even as in these days we see that our enemies, by fighting you, have blinded themselves. Heavenly Father, you know our challenges, the trouble of our hearts, the menace of those that fight against us, the cowardice of those politicians that have betrayed us and broken their promises. May they fall before the conviction of your word and the actions of your people. We pray for their conversion and repentance toward you, that they would embrace the way of God, which is the way of life, freedom, and liberty. For the scripture says that without you there is only death and despair. For we know that where your spirit dwells, there is true and lasting liberty. If they do not repent, Father, arise and break their jaw, knock out their teeth. May there arise in our land salvation, blessing, and peace for those and from this, a recognition of the right which you give of a just defense of human life against tyranny and murder. We ask all these things, Father, in the name of Jesus, the King of nations, who puts down the princes of this world. Amen.
Amen. Psalm 3 is one of my absolute favorites. I love the terminology in there. Before we had this rally, Chuck LaRosa from Ohioans for Concealed Carry and I were talking about some of the details, and he had mentioned something like, make sure we keep that prayer a little short. There's not any posts for us all to lean up against out here. And I'll tell you, I'm a Presbyterian and Scott is a Presbyterian, and for a Presbyterian, that was a short prayer. So I hope that was good, Chuck. All right, so next here, we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, if you guys could take off your hats, I'd appreciate it if I see anybody. Just let me know. There's a couple of American flags. Let's just focus on this one right here. This is Chuck LaRosa. So if you'll all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I'm going to ask Shelley Sharp to come up here and lead us by singing our national anthem. As a little side note, I don't know how many of you watched or follow Tara Ross on Facebook. Chuck LaRosa actually got me onto her. But her post yesterday was talking about how 205 years ago, last night, Francis Scott Key went to sleep, and he woke up 205 years ago this morning, and that's when he saw that Old Glory was still flying. And so I think it's even better that we recognize that this morning. Give it up for Old Glory. And now we're going to have Shelley Sharp lead us in singing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yeah!
Fabulous. 205 years. What a fabulous occasion to be here. This is, I can't say my next introduction. This is the joint introduction. Come on up here, Chuck. As many of you know who watch the Ohio gun owners videos, first of all, you know I can go on for a long time and kind of get bent a little bit. But I've done gun politics in multiple states since 2009. I got my start in Iowa in 2009. And I found over the years and in different states that there are oftentimes involved in the fight for gun rights, there's a lot of people with egos, that their driving force is egos, that they want that pat on the back from the politicians. And so when I moved here and we started working for Iowa gun owners, starting building up this organization, you know, there's always some skepticism. And I think it was shared between me and Chuck at some point until we actually sat down and talked to one another and found out, hey, we are on the same page. So it gives me a lot of sincere pleasure to introduce the joint sponsor of this event, Chuck LaRosa from Ohioans for Concealed Carry. Give him a big, huge round of applause.
This one?
Yeah, it's on.
All right. This thing on? Well, I went to print my speech this morning and my computer ate it. So I'm just going to wing it. And I got some notes from some other things I've done. We live in the freest country on earth. When they founded this country, they wrote a document. I call it our founding document. It's our Declaration of Independence. It expressly states, we hold truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Our government is instituted to secure our rights. That is the reason for its existence. Every law that they pass, be it against theft, murder, any manner of crime, it's to secure your rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. You have a right to own property. You have a right to defend yourself and that property. Our government considered these rights to be so important that they added 10 amendments to our first Constitution. We call it the Bill of Rights. The first of these amendments addresses our freedom to worship, to speak, to publish our opinions, to assemble, to petition the government. The Second Amendment guarantees the rights in the first by guaranteeing our right to keep and bear arms so that we can defend ourselves, not only against common criminals, but also against a tyrannical government, should that happen. OFCC, Ohioans for Concealed Carry, was founded in 1999 by a man that I have no end of respect for. His name's Jeff Garvis. He started out with a card table and a clipboard. And he started getting petitions so that we could have a concealed carry law in the state of Ohio. It took 5 years or so for that to happen. Ever since then, we've been trying to expand rights and make them better. One of the ways that we've done that is with ORC 9.68 that guarantees that all the gun laws in the state will be at a state level so that small municipalities cannot outlaw your individual gun, your individual magazine, your individual choice to defend your home and your family the way that you want to. This law of ours is coming under attack along with all of our other rights because there are people who just don't like us being free. They're wanting to pass red flag laws on us. They're going to call this round a safety law, a safety protection order. What it is a way to restrict freedom of speech for everybody on our side of the aisle. Chris, I don't know where he's at, over here, has already had a gun more or less sick the state highway patrol on him for a political speech that he made on a Facebook video. If the proposal passes, instead of rumors of an investigation, what Chris said, nice save. Instead of an investigation, what Chris said would get him 3 days in a psych ward for an evaluation, followed immediately by a hearing where he would get a chance to try to convince a judge why he should be allowed to exercise his rights as an American citizen. We can't let this happen, folks. Not only is the governor's plan up, but there's at least a half a dozen flat-out red flag bills introduced by various Democrats. When I first got started in gun rights activism, there was one legislator who every session would introduce a constitutional carry bill. Every legislative session, it would go nowhere. OFCC would come out, make a press release in support of it. That was pretty well the end of it. Never got a hearing. His bills never made it out of committee. Now, that same gentleman, Ron Hood, has introduced a bill that has made it out of one committee, and they've sent it back to another. It's my pleasure to introduce Representative Ron Hood, guys.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. We got a beautiful day, and I have never felt safer in my life than I do right now. I appreciate each and every one of you and what you do for the cause. And I'll tell you what, it's always a battle. And what you guys understand that so many do not is this is a lifelong battle. And it's a battle that will be passed generation to generation. And if we're not vigilant, we will lose our rights. And if we lose our rights, we lose the republic. And so we have to fight. We have to continue. We have to continue to be vigilant. And yes, we have to trust God. Because as you know, we do not war against flesh and blood. It's against powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. And we have to war in the spirit, and then we have to walk it out in the flesh. And I appreciate you, and that's what we're doing today. First of all, I would be remiss if I don't bring up John Lott. How many remember his book, More Guns, Less Crime? Well, when I brought that up in committee, those on the other side looked at me like, what are you talking about? Well, you know, that was a very well-researched book, and it made it very, very clear. Now, we've come a long way since that book was written, but at the time that book was written, Ohio didn't even have any type of concealed carry law. And it showed that border counties in states that do not have concealed carry were some of the most dangerous places to be. And it just showed how in Ohio, one more reason why we needed that protection to pass concealed carry. But I want to shift focus here for a second before I go back to that. I want to talk about things that happen after certain events happen. Okay, so we know that we have to endure as citizens these awful tragedies that keep going on one after another, and they have been going on for decades. And every time one of these tragedies happen, and they are tragedies, and our hearts go out to these victims. But every single one of these times a tragedy happens, there's always a call for some sort of common sense gun law. Okay, well, I would like you to tell me, what is a common sense gun law? Okay, well, let's start with gun buyback. Okay, so, all right, gun buyback. Okay, so tell me, if law-abiding citizens are selling their guns and criminals are not, are we more safe with gun buyback laws? How about the assault weapons ban? Well, okay, what? So in other words, if we outlaw assault weapons and criminals have them and law-abiding citizens don't have them, how does that protect us? Is that a common sense? Is that a common sense gun law? No. How about one gun a month? Wow, isn't that just wonderful? So us law-abiding citizens can buy one gun a month, while criminals can get as many guns as they want. Okay, does that protect us? Is that a common sense gun law? How about red flag laws? Okay, wow. Okay, so let's say we passed red flag laws. I would agree with that, but let's say that happened. Let's say, okay, so criminals are going to obey red flag laws, right? All right, hey, this is my favorite, okay? Actually, I'm saying that with my tongue firmly inserted in my cheek, right? How about gun-free zones? Wow. Let's pass. So we're going to pass a law that tells criminals it's safe to shoot people here? How is that common sense gun legislation? Is it? Okay, another one, background checks. Oh, we have background checks already? Oh, okay, well, that's why we don't have any more school shootings. Okay, background checks. All right, well, first of all, I will concede that there might be a few foolish criminals out there that would actually stand in line for a background check. A few. But I can tell you one thing. After they fail that background check, we can all pillow our head in just the firm knowledge and comfort that there's no other way they're going to be able to acquire a firearm, right? Oh, so background checks. Is that common sense gun legislation? I can't hear you. Okay. How about another one of my favorites? Okay. I love the red circle with the line through it. Okay. Okay. With the gun in it, right? Right. Okay. Well, okay. I'm a little confused here. I walk up to an establishment and I see that sign, and I'm thinking, why are we announcing aid and comfort to criminals to be able to commit a nefarious act in that building? Because isn't that what? Oh, no. I understand. We just need to make the sign bigger because the criminal can't see it. So how does these common sense gun laws, they don't sound common sense to me. Well, let's talk about common sense. If no one in a school has a gun except for a criminal, is that common sense? No. If you want to defend, we need more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens. Dude. I am thankful for our law enforcement. Okay, they do everything they can. However, they can't be everywhere. Unfortunately, most of the time they can show up 20 minutes later and make a report. Well, I think it's a little too late then, isn't it? But in government, politicians govern by crisis. Something happens and they say, oh, the people are screaming, we have to have a law. Well, okay, well, maybe we do need a law. I think we need a constitutional carry law. What threat is a law-abiding citizen to the public? In fact, the law-abiding citizen could actually provide safety to the public, and we all know that. So, constitutional carry is real simple. Since criminals already have the right to carry without a permit, why shouldn't we have the right to carry without a permit? Criminals already have rights because they don't respect the law. I'll tell you what. I know how we serve. Candice, Keller, I just realized how we can solve the murder problem in Ohio. No. You and I should probably introduce a law making murder illegal. And if it passes, we won't have to worry about murder in the state of Ohio anymore. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, well, because after all, criminals obey laws. Criminals are going to obey red flag laws. Are criminals going to obey red flag laws? Are they going to obey an assault weapons ban? Are they going to obey? Are they going to sell their gun in a buyback program? No. Are they going to submit to one gun a month? No. All right. Well. So enough of this so-called common sense gun laws. The only common sense gun laws are ones that equip law-abiding citizens to protect the public. Yes, constitutional carry for the first time ever finally passed a committee in the Ohio House of Representatives. I want to thank Chairman John Becker. He was very instrumental in making that happen. I want to thank my joint sponsor, Tom Brinkman. When I first when constitutional carry was first introduced in the Ohio House of Representatives, that's back when I introduced it back in 1995 when I was 9 years old. Okay, and we didn't call it constitutional carry then. We called it Vermont-style concealed carry because Vermont was the only state that had it. And that's and so we were saying, hey, Vermont has it, why can't we have it? And when that was first introduced back in 1995. Well, I've been in and out of the legislature 3 times. Fortunately, one the times that I was out of the legislature, my joint sponsor, who I serve with now, Tom Brinkman from Cincinnati, was actually carrying that bill during the times I wasn't here. And so I'm certainly grateful to him for that. But this has been a long-term fight. And we have never given up. We have been vigilant, and we're going to continue to do that. And now we're closer than ever to have an actual real common sense law pass the Ohio House of Representatives. Okay? Everybody asks, well, shouldn't we have a background check? Well, that might feel good politically, but there's no basis in reality. The reality is criminals don't submit to background checks. So, why are we going to ask government to infringe upon our constitutional rights when the result wouldn't even work in the first place? In fact, it has the opposite effect. So, thank you all for being here today, and let's start passing common sense gun legislation. That's freedom for law-abiding citizens. Thanks so much.
Give it up for Ron Hood. So like I said, I've done gun politics in several states now, and it's a rare thing to be able to find legislators that have chutzpah, that aren't afraid of the leadership structure, who aren't afraid, who don't absolutely bow down to absolutely every word that comes out of leadership's mouths, and actually push legislation, push policy for their district and for the issue people all across the state. Ron Hood is one of those very few legislators. He's been doing it since 1995. Give him one more great, big, huge round of applause. Now, the next speaker I am going to introduce is, let's bring up Gary Witte from Ohioans for Concealed Carry. He used to be their legislative director, and now it appears he has been bumped up to director for Ohioans for Concealed Carry. Get up for Gary Witte.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you all for being here today. We see a war on guns every day. Google good guys with a gun, and the first hits you're going to get will be stories on why a good guy with a gun stopping a crime is a fantasy. Do you believe that? We've got a Democratic presidential contender saying on national stage, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s. We're going to take your AK-47s. They used to say, we're not coming for your guns. They don't hide it anymore. It's out in the open. We have more states that have passed red flag laws than have passed constitutional carry. The FBI reports that guns are used to prevent crime hundreds of thousands of times a year, if not more. Does the liberal media report these? No. We need a war on gun control. One of our greatest fears on red flag laws has been realized. What we have been warning would happen has happened. A Florida man recently lost his Second Amendment rights and his firearms were confiscated because he had the same name as a criminal. What makes matters worse, if it can be worse, is that he has to wait for the woman who filed a complaint to go to court and tell a judge, no, that's not the guy. And on top of that, he then has to petition the court on his dime to get his guns back. All because of a red flag law and a system that's too inflexible to see the physical difference between the criminal and the legal gun owner with the same name. The cops didn't care. They had their man. We can't let this happen in Ohio. I was on a radio talk show recently, and Governor DeWine's 17-point plan to reduce gun violence came up. It struck me that out of his 17 points, 7 of them increased penalties for the use of a firearm in various circumstances. He says that's going to reduce gun violence. It may work 5, 7, 9 years from now, but it's not going to work now. People want something done now. That's their knee-jerk reaction. They want something done now, not 5 to 7 years from now. There are things that we can do to reduce gun violence now. We have a bill right now that Representative Hood alluded to that will allow them to carry their firearms without having to go through the bureaucracy. It's called constitutional carry. We need that passed in Ohio. We need immunity written into laws to prevent us from losing everything we've worked for and our life savings because we defend ourselves from death or great bodily harm. We need to ensure that the perpetrators and that person or person's relatives can't bring legal action against us for performing a legal defensive action. We need a bill introduced and passed that will allow anyone who can legally possess a firearm or threaten to use a firearm to defend himself and his loved ones. We have that right in our homes. We have that right in our cars. We need that right wherever we can legally be. Bad guys will always have guns. Bad guys will always use guns. What's not common sense is to expect a good guy to be defenseless against a bad guy with a gun. It's not common sense. It's not common sense to expect an individual to retreat from somewhere he has a lawful right to be because a bad guy threatens him. What's not common sense is for someone who lawfully uses a firearm to defend himself to be sued in civil court for taking legal action. There are 15 anti-gun bills in the Ohio legislature right now. 7 of these bills will have their first hearing in front of a committee next week. We need to stop these bills in their tracks. I've seen committee rooms stacked with red shirt mom demand action people who want to force their opinions on legislature by their sheer numbers. We need to counter that. Many of us, probably most of us, can't attend hearings during the week. Why? We work for a living. We take care of our families. We have commitments to our employers. We don't have the luxury of sitting around the kitchen table sipping coffee in the mornings and discussing how to deprive freedom-loving Americans of their constitutional rights. When you receive notifications from OFCC, OGO, to take actions on a bill by attending a hearing, if at all possible, or writing your legislature to voice your opinion, do it. If you know you can't attend a hearing, write your legislature. Not tomorrow, not next week. Do it when you read the email calling for action. Can we counter the red shirts? Yes, we can. In 2012, because of you and your actions and the flood of phone calls and emails the State House received against a bill, the governor's henchmen yelled at me halfway across the State House rotunda one day, "Call off your dogs." Your actions worked. The legislation was modified to meet our needs. Don't underestimate the power of your written word or your phone call. Don't be complacent and say someone else will do it. Thank you.
All right. So somebody just came up to me a moment ago and pointed out, do you guys have any women that are going to be speaking here today? And I'm here to tell you that our next speaker is one of the most fabulous women I have ever met in my life. Her name, she is the sponsor of the Stand Your Ground bill that is very near to being introduced. It's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks, so watch your email boxes. But she's kind of notorious lately because she said a few things on her Facebook page about how maybe there's other causal factors other than guns that are causing this violence. And we got cornered. I got cornered here at the State House a couple days after that, and they were trying to get me to renounce her and what she had said. I'm like, are you serious? This is Candice Keller. There's very few women like her in all of America. So with that, I am going to introduce her and let her speak to you. Representative Candice Keller. She is running for the state Senate, so be paying attention to her.
Well, thank you all. I love you guys. I love how you look. I love your clothes. The redneck thing, I love. Anything hillbilly on here, you're my people. So thank you so much for standing with me. I did say something a few weeks ago that, much to my surprise, was inflammatory, but what I said was that I believe that marriage is between one man and one. So I didn't know the left was going to become unhinged, but they're already completely insane. So there's just a couple things I wanted to say today. First of all, thank you for standing so strong with us. There are a lot of strong legislators that are going to stand against red flag, and I'm one of them. And my opponent for the Senate has already come out and said he's voting for red flag. And you know what? There isn't even a bill written yet. So that's kind of like Nancy Pelosi saying, let's pass health care and then we'll read it later, kind of like that. So I don't agree with bills that I haven't laid eyes on yet. So that's what my opponent's doing. It's very hard when you get into the legislature not to think about the founders. At least I do. I think about them all the time and what they went through and what they did for us 243 years ago. And you know, they must have understood the nature of man so well, because they knew that because they had lived under a government of tyranny, that was going to be possible in the future. And so they wrote this Second Amendment for us, which is a God-given right. Nobody gave you the right to carry. Nobody gave you the right to carry. You were born with the right to carry. So they can't take something away from you that they never gave to you. So that's the first thing. But, you know, I think they would be astonished at how far to the left the liberals have gone on giving us the ability to protect ourselves. Now, I'm a woman, clearly. I'm married to this terrific guy down here who's videotaping me right now. And he's not with me all the time. And so I have this other thing with me called a 357. And, you know, that puts me on equal footing with anybody who's coming at me. And they know that. Now, and there's no place in Columbus, Ohio safer than this right here. No place. And so, you know, our ability to protect ourselves, of course, it's not to be infringed. Infringed means it's not even possible to take that away from us. And so as we saw, I don't know if any of you had the stomach to watch the debate a couple days ago. But, you know, it's like they want to see just how far they can go, even to the point where they will come to your house and take what you own. And they think they have the right. Now, I'll be introducing Stand Your Ground in a few weeks. And and you know, everybody that's heard about it, that's not with us on this, says, "Oh, Candice, are you crazy? It's never going to pass." That's what they said about the heartbeat bill, and I did that. So this is a war on us to disarm us. And particularly, you know, most men are bigger than women. It's a little bit easier. But when you're a woman, this is really a war on women. This will be so dangerous for women to not have any ability to protect ourselves. And I say this almost every time I speak. Our Constitution was not written to us. It is not written to us. It is written to the government. Congress shall make no law. Because our founders knew we know how to take care of ourselves. I got a lot of stuff. Anybody here got shoes? I mean, you come in after, when the, you know, and our founders lived in a time where, you know, the military that were against them could literally come into their house and take their things or quarter there. And our founders made sure that was not going to be able to happen again by giving us the power. And I will have to say, in the 18 months since we've been here, Chris, we were here in March of 2018, we have seen a total assault on our ability to hold fast to our Second Amendment, haven't we? Even in 18 months, they have completely lost what's left of their minds. And so, you know, as a legislator, and I'm here with the Army, Ron Hood, incredible, and Tom Brinkman and John Becker, we are the radical nut jobs that they all hate up here. And, you know, we're in the minority, but I don't care what they think. How's that working for you? I don't care what they think. They already think they think you're a bunch of knuckle-dragging Neanderthals, Bible-thumping Fruit Loops. And I couldn't possibly care what they think, do you? I don't care what they think. Because I'm standing, first of all, I'm a Christian first. And a conservative second, and a Republican third, and that's moving down all the time, could I just say. But, you know, we're now facing a government that literally wants to deny me the right to defend myself, and that's not their job. The Nancy Pelosi's of the world can shut it. And this bunch of pretenders 2 nights ago, 10 of them, I don't know a one of them that can beat Donald Trump in their wildest dreams. Not a one. But I know that our founders would have, if they could look ahead in time, had seen this group trying to take the White House, who want to do things like shout their abortion and take your guns. They would have wondered that why are we being asked to give up our rights during such a time of violence. Now, I'm from Southwest Ohio, just Dayton, and we saw a tragic shooting back in August. It's so painful, really, for any community to have to go through that. And the first thing the next day, you know what the left said? You've got to get rid of those guns. They didn't mention the shooter. You know who they talked about? Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump's fault. And this is the fault of the guns. I've recently lost some weight. So you know what? You know what didn't make me fat? My fork. My fork did not make me overweight. I did that. And my gun doesn't kill anybody. It's a piece of metal. And it gives me power, and it gives me strength, and it gives me a defense against the wicked and evil times in which we're living. And so we're not sheep. But I'll tell you this, we are under siege. And I don't want to alarm you because, we're living in a dark time. We are the legislators that are up here for now. This is our assignment for now. We're not going to be up here forever. But I want to charge you. You are literally the only thing standing between this nation and utter disaster. It's all you. It's all you. And locally, at the local level, and I know you're from all different places in Ohio, but when things happen, please speak up and say, no, we're not having this nonsense in our local library. I elected this school board, so if you do this in our local school, we're voting all of you out, and that $150,000 a year superintendent, he's going out the door with you. You're in charge. You're in charge. You're the boss. We work for you. You are paying our salary. And you're paying the salary of everybody at the local level who's trying to take your rights away. And if you have a legislator who has already gone on record and said that they're going to vote for red flag, the most unconstitutional thing I have ever heard of, you need to vote that person out. I don't care who they are. This is how we will be safe. I want to be safe in my community. The red flag law, and I don't know where it's at. You know, we hear the same thing you all hear. Who's looking at it? Who's voting for it? Who's presenting it? It's unconstitutional. It's dangerous for our law enforcement. You're guilty until you're proven innocent, instead of innocent until you're proven guilty. It completely does away with due process. And here's the thing, everybody pushing it, they're all lawyers. And you know they know better, but they're afraid. They don't have any courage because courage comes from God. And when an audience stands in front of you and says, do something, don't do something stupid. Don't introduce a bill called red flag law because criminals don't care. I asked a law enforcement officer this week, I said, what do you think about red flag? He said, by the time we catch a criminal and he stole something or shot somebody or beat his wife up, the last thing he cares about is some dinky little red flag law. It's not going to stop him and it's not going to be a detriment. So, I will say this, an armed society is a polite society. This is the most polite bunch of people I've ever been around. Registration is a precursor to confiscation. It's a precursor to confiscation. Gun controls infringe on our rights, and we are the empowered people. The whole world looks on with envy at what we have here. Let's don't throw it away by being passive. Please, please support those legislators and those people in your community who are willing to stand up for our Second Amendment. It means more than anything. When we go before an enemy nation, if we put a piece of paper in front of them, this is what our Constitution says. On paper, it's in ink. They don't care about that piece of paper. You know what they care about? They care about how much firepower your nation has. That's what's called peace through strength, and that's what we've got to hold on to. So thanks so much for coming today.
Test. Give it up for Candice Keller. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just met a girl, and she is a veteran. She's retired from the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel. She's kind of a little tiny thing, and she did 2 tours in the Middle East, and she's seen a lot, and she's got a lot to say about the Second Amendment. So I want to introduce Jennifer Gross.
Where are my brothers and sisters? Raise your hands. Brothers and sisters in arms. God bless you. 95. That was the number of days, the hell that I lived in the desert. And I served my fellow Army guys, and I flew into Kuwait, and I carried a sidearm, and who taught me? Those amazing training instructors in the military. And then what happens? You come home. Now I'm a practicing nurse practitioner. I see all the veterans. I see Marines. I see Army. I see Air Force. I see EOD disposal. And I carried my sidearm. I carried it, and I carried it well. And by the way, I'm a nurse. And so then what happens? We come home. We've been trained. We're armed. And now something called red flag comes along. And so my neighbor says, she's a combat veteran. She went to the desert. I don't feel safe. I'm not sure that she should have a gun. What do you guys think about that? Do I look scary? But to some people, those of us who have served, we look like we're scary to them, and it doesn't matter whether we have done anything. Just because we carry, we're scary. So someone can come to us and they say, oh, well, I know she carries a gun and her husband's working in the yard and he's got one on him now, and I don't feel safe because I'm a snowflake. And then you get a knock on the door and they say your neighbor doesn't feel safe. They think you might have PTSD because you're a combat veteran. And so they come and they take our arm. How is that right? How, according to the Constitution, are we free with our inalienable rights that can only be taken by God? How can we have someone come and take that right that shall not be infringed? How? How is that? How can we be safe? How can we be trained by our armed forces? And then as soon as we get here, I'm from Westchester, Liberty Township, Fairfield Township, District 52, Butler County. How then in Butler County am I no longer safe to care for you, my U.S. citizen, my brother and sister? So I ask you, do not remain not that you guys are. We're the active ones. Talk to your neighbors. Make sure they know. Educate them. Educate them. Let them know that gun rights bills languish in the Ohio House, not being voted on. Not being voted on. Is that not true?
It's true.
So, I ask you, support each other. Carry. And, oh, by the way, I'm for constitutional carry, and because shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed, and no offense against the CCW people, but if a mom lives in the inner city and $100 is too expensive for her to do a CCW class, is that not infringement? So if she has constitutional carry, then she is not infringed. So thank you. Again, I'm Jennifer Gross. I'm running for the Ohio House of Representatives, District 52. You will never find a stronger additional Neanderthal in the Ohio House of Representatives.
I like that. Not afraid to call herself a Neanderthal. Is this thing working? I can hardly hear it. There we go. All right. First thing before I start speaking, and I'll try to keep it a little bit more brief than some of my recent videos. But the Ohio gun owners booth back, Tom, I saw that. The OGO booth back there, we're running a special on memberships today. So make sure you stop by. We have a wonderful new T-shirt. It's got the Betsy Ross flag. Apparently, it's the newest racist symbol. So we threw it up on our most recent shirt, and it's a fantastic shirt, and it triggers people quite effectively. So make sure you stop by the rally-only event. Another thing I'd like to just read off here for just a few seconds is some of these fabulous signs that I see here today. They're fabulous. I see this one over here first and foremost. Hold that thing up big. It says, "Betrayed Ohio gun owners, two-faced," and it says, "liars." Then it says, "Jim Irvine." We're going to talk about some of these things here today. And these are people that are making deals with the devil, but we'll get into that in just a few moments. Candice Keller said something just a second ago. She said this is a war on women. And then the following speaker, I'm sorry, I don't remember what her name is. I'm bad with names. But she emphasized it as well. She talked about the war on our veterans. And because we carry, we're scary. I was looking over at Chris Laidlaw. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Right there. Yeah, and that's the kind of person I think of. It is veterans who are going to be the number one demographic that is targeted right out of the gate with these red flag laws. And we cannot let that happen. So a big thank you to all of our veterans. I should have said that from the outset. If you are a veteran, thank you so much for our opportunity to stand here and peaceably assemble to address our grievances with this government. And boy, do we have grievances with this government. Now, I'm just going to give kind of a legislative update on where we are right now and where we're going here at Ohio Gun Owners. So it wasn't that long ago that we were all standing right here, wasn't it? How many of you were here at the March 10, 2018 rally? Give a big, huge yeehaw. Yeah, a lot of you were here, and I will say they have found out, apparently, that we are peaceful, law-abiding citizens because we don't have the snipers up on each corner this time, so that's good. They found out that we're good folks, what we already knew. But we were right here, and what was kind of the signature event that happened that day? Mary Taylor stood here and held her gun high, and she went on the record for gun rights and said, "I will not vote for red flag gun confiscation orders. I will not vote for universal background checks." You all remember that? And so we spent the next several months like hound dogs, dogs on bones, trying to get Governor or candidate DeWine to go on record against some of this gun control, or at least say that he would support and sign into law some of the pro-gun bills that we're now trying to push through our General Assembly. And what do we get? We got nothing. We got nothing. In fact, I went to the Trump rally down in, I think it was Westchester, Ohio, or Mason, somewhere down there, and he was there working the line, and I asked him point blank to his face, "Why don't you sign our survey?" He's like, "Well, because I support the Second Amendment. I support the Second." Yeah, so does Barack Obama, but why won't you sign our survey and go on record? He just never would. And so a lot of people were asking us back then, during the election season, they say, "Chris," and they would email us and call us, they'd say, "Chris, what are we supposed to do here? What are we supposed to do? We got Richard Cordray, who is a lunatic, and we got Mike DeWine, who's a lunatic." Yeah. Now, lest you guys forget, well, we're going to talk about that. So let's remember who John Kasich is here for just a minute. Remember back in, I'm sorry. See, this is the problem. I think of John Kasich, I was thinking of Mike DeWine. I really meant to talk about Mike DeWine. Let's talk about Mike DeWine. Remember who Mike DeWine is here for just a second. This is the guy who joined with then Congressman John Kasich to vote for the Clinton assault weapons ban back in 1994. Right? Remember that? Now, we don't remember that very often because it was actually John Kasich who got the letter of thanks from President Clinton saying you did such a wonderful job stabbing your constituents in the back and supporting this gun control. So we have that record for Mike DeWine. We have him on record voting to let gun control organizations sue firearms manufacturers. Remember that? Because, but he never supported a bill that said we could sue car manufacturers for automobile accidents. No, he never did that. He's also the same guy who joined with Dianne Feinstein in 2004 to reintroduce, after it had sunsetted, to reintroduce the Clinton assault weapons ban. How about a boo? Yeah. And for those of you who are about ready to jump down my throat and say, hey, you're using the left's terminology of assault weapons ban. Yes, I know. I'm borrowing their terminology. There is no such thing as an assault weapon. But so that's Mike DeWine. And so everybody was asking us during election season, Chris, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, you know what? Let me ask around to a few people who've been around this state for a long time. I'm just going to bounce this. I have these suspicions, but let me get back to you guys. So I started calling around to some people who have been following Ohio politics for a long time. And they agreed with me right out of the gate. They said, look, if we have we know what Mike DeWine is. We know what he is. We know he's just John Kasich reloaded. He was nasty as a congressman. He said he found Jesus when he was running for statewide office, but we know what he is. We know what he is. He won't go on record. And he said, and a lot of people said to me, they said, Chris, think about this. If we have Richard Cordray, and this is a hard pill to swallow, folks. If we have Richard Cordray, think of it in terms of our legislature. How are Republicans in the legislature going to react if a Democrat governor tries to run through gun control? I said, well, sounds pretty easy to me. I think they'll probably act like Republicans. And they, to a person that I talked to, said, absolutely, that is the case. Because now, what do we have? We have Mike DeWine, one of ours, a Republican, going on Anderson Cooper, going on every media outlet that he can possibly find, saying, I'm working with the gun rights community. They're sitting at the table. The gun control organizations are sitting at the table, and we're all crafting this policy that I think can work. I think can work. I don't know how many of you watched the presser where he unveiled the 17-point plan. I tried to play some of that stuff on our Facebook channel for you guys to try to distill down to just a few seconds the most important parts. But one of the reporters asked him, they said, why now? Why now, Governor? Why, you've supported this gun control in the past, and then you somehow got the NRA to give you an endorsement, even though you were previously an F-rated candidate with them. You know how hard it is to get an F rating from the NRA? It's pretty hard. Why now? What about the Dayton killing? And of course, they don't call it a killing; they call it the Dayton gun violence occurrence. What about this event is different? And he said it so arrogantly, so smugly, and my glasses aren't thick enough to really do justice and pretend I'm Mike DeWine. But he said, because now I'm governor. Because now I'm governor. He's like, I was attorney general back in the 90s. I was in Congress. Then I was, a lieutenant governor back in the 90s. Then I was in Congress. And then I was attorney general. But now I'm the governor, and I can do it. Boo! How dare he? How dare he? If he had gone all over this state, into every corner of this state back in the election season of last year and said, you know what? I am going to introduce a 17-point gun control plan that includes the hallmark agenda for Michael Bloomberg, which is universal gun registration. He would have got his teeth kicked in First of all, in the primary season, and if not then, in the general election season. Am I right? I hear people saying, recall. Tell him to resign. That's exactly what he should do. He should come here. He should come down out of his ivory tower up there. His office, his regular offices are up there in the top of the Rife building. He should waddle down here and cross that street and stand up here and apologize to each and every one of us for the knife in the back that he's given us. He's tyranny reloaded. That's exactly what he's. He's Kasich reloaded. But he's got company. He's got company. He's got Lieutenant Governor John Husted at his side now. Now, everybody knows that there was a deal made with the devil back then. John Husted was running for governor, and all of a sudden, he just folded up like a cheap suit and rolled right into the Governor DeWine campaign, and it was terrible. Everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew something happened behind closed doors. And then just a couple of weeks ago, when DeWine was having another presser, he even admitted one of the sticklers that Mike DeWine said that Husted had to agree with before DeWine would let Husted come onto his ticket was that he had to overhaul the Ohio NICS, or the background check system. Get all the data from all the different data entry points all across the state to get flowing into the state system so that it could automatically get uploaded into the federal gun owner database. John Husted made the deal. Benedict Husted is his new name. So John Husted has signed off on universal background checks. Is there anybody here who is opposed to universal background checks? Do you know what that is? It is the first step to outright gun confiscation. And there's a lot of people, especially, there's some few FUDs out there who don't agree with this or don't understand this concept. But the background check system, it has never stopped a single mass killing. Everybody, we've all seen that now. But B, it is a federal gun owner database system. And the day that they come to try to take away our guns, that is the database that they will be using. John Husted made the deal to enhance that system right here in the state of Ohio. Remember his name for later on down the road. He sold gun owners out completely. So, yeah, I'm actually not surprised. And like I said, DeWine's got company, so he's got Husted. This is the cast of characters. He's got Husted flanking him, just sitting there going, yep. We're talking to all the gun rights community people, and they're all on board in this, and yeah, we're doing our job, and I can't wait to be governor if I can only just Anyway, so also, who else does he have? Who else is on this cast of characters? Let's talk about Senate Republicans. Huh? Well, we're going to get to that. Hold on. Hang on. You're jumping the gun here. Senate Republicans. It's no secret. The Columbus Disgrace or Columbus Dispatch, whatever you want to call it, I'm sure they got one of their people slinking around here somewhere. They've been reporting on this with glee that Senate Republican President of the Senate, Larry Obhoff, has said, I like the red flag bill. Got all the kinks worked out. No, you don't, because due process is still violated in that thing. But so you got Larry Obhoff, who is saying that he supports it. And then the leftist news media, they did a poll just the other day. And I don't know how many of you guys saw this on our Facebook page, but I'm going to read these Republican names out loud right here. Now, keep in mind, these are Senate Republicans who have said that they will support Governor Kasich's 17-point gun control agenda plan, and they haven't even read the bill. They haven't even read the bill. They're pulling a Nancy Pelosi. We gotta pass the bill in order to see what's in it. Keep in mind, these Senate Republicans are saying they are going to support the red flag bill, even though they haven't read it. We've got Senate 7. We got Republican Rhino, State Senator Steve Wilson. Give him a boo. Give him a boo. Yeah, there you go. Senate District 10, Bob Hackett. This one's, she's a real peach. She's a real peach. Senate District 16, Stephanie Kunze. Give her a nasty boo. Yeah, she's a real nasty piece of work. She's the same one who joined up with Senator John Eklund last year to co-sponsor or to joint sponsor the Senate companion bill to House Bill 585. Remember that bill? That was John Kasich's gun control bill. At least John only had a 5-point gun control plan, whereas DeWine has a 17-point gun control plan. So, yeah, a nasty piece of work, Stephanie Kunze. Senate 31, this one really shocked me. Jay Hottinger said he'd support it. He has never read the bill. Give him a big boo. Kirk Schuring and Matt Dolan are the other two from Senate 29 and Senate 24 who have said that they will support this garbage even though they've never even read the bill. Jump over into the House side. Now, the House is clearly where you people are the strongest in this state. This is where there's the most amount of resistance. You're looking at two of them right here and two more over there. We got our biggest amount of resistance. Yeah, give it up for them again. These state reps, John Becker, Tom Brinkman, Candice Keller, and Ron Hood, they are the people who are leading the real resistance inside this building and across the hall over there at the Rife building. But in the House, very few Republicans are coming out and saying that they are going to oppose this stuff. And saying that they're going to support this stuff. We got two on this list that the media reported. Only two. I'm going to read them for you here really quick. Two of them. Number one is from House District 30, Bill Seitz. Now, if you can think of what a Tyrannosaurus Rex looks like, you're kind of thinking what Bill Seitz looks like. He looks like a T-Rex, not in a good way. So you got one guy, he's in leadership, right? Yeah, he's leader. He's about as high as it gets over there, except for maybe our speaker. But the number two in the House, I thought this was very shocking when I first read this. This was House District 52, and it still just blows my mind. House District 52, Representative George Lang. What in H-E double hockey sticks is George Lang doing, saying that he's going to support red flag gun confiscation when he's never read the bill? Now, for those of you who don't know who George Lang is, and I'm sorry, I get bogged down into the minutia of this stuff too much. So tell me, shut up, Chris, keep moving if you get bored. But George Lang is the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. Okay? He's the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee, and guess where constitutional carry got sent by the Speaker after we passed it out of the Federalism Committee? It got sent right over there to George Lang's committee in the criminal justice. Guess what? Guess what also is happening with George Lang? He's got a very eventful life. He's also running for state senate. Can you believe it? He thinks he needs a pay increase. He needs an office upgrade. He doesn't want to cross underneath the tunnels anymore. He wants to just have his office right over here where the senators have their offices. Well, you want to know who George Lang is running against in the Senate? Anybody take a guess real quick? He's running against her, right here. He's running against Candice Keller. Candice Keller, again, she is the joint sponsor on the Stand Your Ground bill that's about to be introduced momentarily. So to say that constitutional carry has an uphill slog right now, that'd be a fair and accurate statement. But George Lang and Bill Seitz, those are the only two Republicans that have stated their public support for red flag gun confiscation orders in the House. I'm almost done with the cast of characters here. We're going to get to BFA in just a second. But the media. Now, has anybody seen the Columbus Dispatch around here? What? Are they around here? They got to be around here somewhere. They're always looking to grind their axe against gun owners any chance they can. Oh, what's that? They're here? Daryl Rowland and Randy Ludlow. Oh, here they are. Look at that. Look at that. They're right there in the corner for Mike DeWine. They are his little puppets. Look at him. There's Daryl. And there's Randy Ludlow from the Columbus Disgrace. Look at him. Look at them. They get the order from Mike DeWine, and what do? They go right to work. In fact, on August 4, when my wife woke me up early in the morning, it was very early in the morning, she was up to feed our 7th child. I'm the father of 7, husband of 1. She was up to feed him, he's a hungry little dude, and she came and woke me up. She's like, Chris, there's something big happening in downtown Dayton. You need to watch this. And so I got up, I started watching. Now, this is at 2:30 in the morning, right? Like 45 minutes after it had happened. And by the way, thank you to this little gentleman right here who is holding the OGO sign. He's fabulous. Give him a round of applause. But I got up early that morning, and lo and behold, here, right, like clockwork, Randy Ludlow from The Disgrace starts tweeting his old articles, why we haven't been able to pass any gun control. These people don't wait anymore. Those puppets from the corporate media, remember this, they are a political entity just like any other special interest group. They are here at the State House with an agenda to grind. It's for them, it's not for us. Remember that. Here he is. They don't even wait till the blood dries anymore. They don't wait till the blood dries, and they immediately get to work. If this was a Moms Demand Action, a Lion County Mommy Red Shirt Radical Brigade rally, they'd have all kinds. They'd probably have a press box set up right over there with risers so that they could get the camera shots in here that they so desperately want to push out. But they all get to work. That's the cast of characters except for one entity. One entity. And I would be remiss. I don't like to sow division, but I would be remiss if I did not mention this right here and right now. That sign, just spin that thing around right there. Make them famous, folks, because Jim Irvine and Buckeye Firearms Association shamefully, and we want them to stop, we want them to get back on board with gun rights, but they have been assisting, aiding, and abetting our governor in crafting this stuff. Now, if you go on their website, you'll see their attack articles against us. They get absolutely furious at us for fundraising. So I'm gonna ask you guys, go over there and make a donation, or go over there and become a member if you're not already. We shamelessly fundraise because if we don't have the resources necessary to get into legislative districts at election time, what are gun owners? We're absolutely worthless. And the political class very quickly realizes these people are just barking dogs. You can ignore them. Use them, get their endorsements, do that kind of stuff, but just ignore them because they can't really do anything. They'll bark during election season, but after election season's over, there's no political bodies laying on the ground after it's over. Better report that one too, everybody. They're too busy compromising, like William Haddock says right here. He's one of our best supporters right down here. They're too busy compromising. They're making deals with the devil. They say, if you go on their website, they say that, well, we oppose this and we oppose that, and we want to tweak this just a little bit. We want to like fine tune this, but at least we're sitting at the table. At least we get a seat at the table. We get to partake in these conversations now, and our whole motto here at Ohio Gun Owners, we don't want a seat at the table of gun control. We don't want a seat at the table that is trying to destroy this country, that is trying to destroy our state, that's trying to prevent me and you from being able to defend ourselves, not just from thugs and criminals, but from tyrannical government. We don't want to sit down at that table. We want to grip the edges of it and throw that sucker up in the air and break it in half. And so it's time for Buckeye Firearms Association to stop what they're doing, stop being the willing fools and tools and sellouts. And it's time for them to retract their endorsement. Bare minimum they could do is take back their endorsement, apologize to gun owners, say we'll never do it again. One of the things we do here at Ohio Gun Owners is we do a campaign survey program. So there's a few candidates around here. Actually, all these people are candidates at some point or another. Probably not Ron Hood. I think he's termed out. That's so very sad. But we're going to be doing a campaign survey program. And we will survey, just like we did last time, we will survey everybody that is running for office, both at the state representative and senator level and at the congressional level. We're expanding this time. And we force these people to fill out our survey, and if they don't, depending on the district, we will aggressively and as nastily as we can, we will target them for education and mobilization efforts in those districts to hold them accountable for everything they do to us in the legislative season. We want to hold them accountable in election time. But it's time to fight. It is time to fight. Like Candice said just a few minutes ago, she said 18 months ago when we were last here, it was a lot different world. John Kasich was a lame duck. Well, he's always been lame, but he was a lame duck governor, and the legislature wasn't too keen on passing a gun control bill when they were getting the absolute tar beaten out of them by you fabulous, wonderful people on House Bill 585. I think of John Wemmer and Shirley Sharp. They came and testified. Tom Reed, where are you? He was somewhere there in the back. They testified against House Bill 585. So many of you sent emails and Facebook messages into the State House and said, don't you dare reward John Kasich's final blow to gun owners. Don't you dare. But yeah, we've come a long ways since March 10 of 2018 last year. First of all, as an organization, we put the brakes on House Bill 585. But now with these shootings, we face a whole new beast. We have a newly elected gun control radical governor. He's going to be in there at least for several more years. He's a tyrant. Who said that? Yeah, he's a tyrant. And we have a fairly new legislature over here, new leadership. We're about ready to have a Senate leadership change or swap over here very shortly. And so we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us. I think these I wasn't paying attention to everything that they were saying, but Ron usually touches on this subject. The only force that is strong enough to stop this assault that is coming on us right now is you. You. It's not Chris Dora. It's not Chris Dora. It's not Ohio gun owners. It's not Ohioans for Concealed Carry. It's all of the people that make up these organizations. It's the Ryan Marlows, the Jeff Hopkins of this, the Tim Schooners. I just pointed at you, but you're not Tim Schooner, but you looked like him there for a minute. It's us that are going to stop this thing if we're to be successful. So that's what I'm asking you guys to do today. When this rally ends, this is not the end of our fight to stop this stuff. This is the beginning. This is the beginning right here. One thing I should have said a long time ago, make sure you all flip out your phones and take photos today. Take photos and videos. Share the Ohio Gun Owners live stream that's going on right now. Plaster that all over your Facebook pages and tag your legislators, your state senators, and your state reps in the comment section. Say, hey, little buddies, these are a sampling of some of the people you will have to face in the November 2020 elections if you cross us and stab us in the back. That's one of the most important things we can be doing here today, so please do it. Make sure you're putting this stuff out all over the place. Because like I said, the puppets, they're not going to be putting this stuff out there. They won't do it. They're in the drink for gun control. So please be doing that all day today. Sign up for our emails. Go to our website, ohiogunowners.org, sign up for those. We put out a lot of emails with legislative action items that are the most, we don't put out just junk. We put out the most important things that you guys can be doing. We value your time, and we want to make this as easy for you guys as possible to help you guys fight for your own, on your own behalf. That's what Ohio Gun Owners is all about. So please sign up for those emails. I was going to sit here and kind of go through all the detailed stuff that we're going to do as an organization, but I think you guys know the drill. Ohio Gun Owners is steeped in absolutely everything we possibly can to both force multiply you people and to get our message out there as much as possible. In the days and weeks ahead, as they come back only 3 days from now, we are launching a massive, and I mean a massive, statewide mobilization program. We're going to be doing digital videos, social media. We're going to be doing targeted email deployments. We're going to be doing direct mail by the tens of thousands all across this state in order to try to get more and more people involved in this fight. When I ask you guys for 20 bucks, when we ask you guys to sign up every year, that's the things that we put this to use with. We need more people involved in this if we are to stop this thing. So please join with us if you are not already with us. At some point, I just started just looking at this paper and not actually reading anything on here. So I think I've pretty much hit everything, folks. I thought I was sitting there this morning thinking about this for just a minute, and that's when I decided I'd put some notes down on paper. I came across this quote. Anybody know who Chesty Puller is? Yeah, there's some Marines in this crowd. That's right, most decorated. He said, all right, they're on our left, they're on our right, they're in front of us, they're behind us. They can't get away from us now. That's exactly where these people are. I've said this so many times. I've said this so many times in our videos. This is the choke point. This is where we hold the line. I've got three of my kids are here today. They're walking around passing out bumper decals. If you don't have one already, find them. But that's one of the reasons why I'm fighting here. But this is the choke point that the media, that Mike DeWine, that all the losers that sit in that building over there, the radical gun control proponents, the rhinos who simply mouth rhetoric at election time simply to get elected, they have to cast their votes. They have to cast their votes. And guess what? Every one of those people view themselves as a future president. They all think, I stole this line. Where is he? Tom Brinkman. I stole this line from Tom Brinkman last year. He said, every one of these people, I'll let you in on a little secret. He said, every one of these people, they want to grow up to be a congressman. Yeah. They all have political ambitions. They want to climb the ladder. Because they want to climb that ladder, we can be effective. So that's what my promise is here to you. Oh, man. Somebody just gave me another person's name that I forgot to list off in the Senate Republicans. But that's my promise to you. We will not stop. We will never betray you. We will never stop. We will never quit. We will never back down. We will continue pushing. We will continue fighting. We will continue exposing these people. We will continue naming their names. And we will go after them viciously at election time and make sure they pay the ultimate price, the ultimate political price for you corporate media people here. And we will make sure they get held accountable. That's what you people are. You're an army that's standing in the gap for future generations. And on behalf of myself, my board, and this organization, thank you so much for coming out here today and standing with us in this fight against gun control. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless Ohio. I like that. Okay, let's. And I went a little bit long there. I apologize. We're gonna get on here. Our next person. I just stole probably his best line. I hope I didn't do that. But this is the joint sponsor on House Bill 201. Please stick around for just a little bit longer, everybody. The joint sponsor on House Bill 201, constitutional carry. And you want to come down right now too? Yeah, we'll bring him down too. Representative John Becker, the chair of the Ohio House Federalism Committee, the first House chairman to ever pass constitutional carry in the state of Ohio through a committee. Here they are. Give them a big round of applause.
We're fighting over who's going first up here. Hey, I hope you don't mind. I want to be your briefest speech today. Is that okay?
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think you guys would mind. So, you know, I tell you, Ron Hood, he hit most of my topics, took my thunder, but that's awesome because there was nobody in Ohio General Assembly better than Ron Hood. And if it weren't for Ron Hood and Tom Brinkman, we would not have the constitutional the constitutional carry bill to have gotten out of the Federalism Committee. I want to give those two guys another big hand. You know, Ron Hood was talking about the common sense theme and common sense to have constitutional carry. You know, one retailer after another. You got, the big names. You got Walmart, you got Target, you got Kroger, the list goes on, are asking nicely, do not open carry in our stores. And frankly, I don't blame them. You got the idiot out in Missouri that walked into a Walmart doing what he did. I don't blame him. I just thank God they didn't put up one of those stupid little red signs that says no guns allowed, which puts all of us at risk. So since they're saying, do not open carry, then doesn't that mean we have to have constitutional carry so we can all conceal carry without a license if we want to? Do you agree with that? Another thing about common sense. If you're being shot at, doesn't it make sense to shoot back? Yeah? Does a gun-free zone make any sense to anybody for any reason? Yeah, it's a free killing zone. What it is, you might as well put a sign on the door that says, come on in and kill us all. We can't shoot back. Does that make any sense to anybody? That's a gun-free zone, and we got to get rid of those gun-free zones. Amen. Yeah, one more on this. Oh, God, this common sense thing is, you hear about access. Low-income people need access to this, access to that, access to another thing. Well, if we stop law enforcement from melting down perfectly good firearms, they can be sold on the used firearm market, if you will, so low-income people can have access so they can protect their homes and their family. Is that common sense? That's right. There you go. All right. 5 more things for you. I call these Beckerisms, okay? Beckerisms. So tell me if you agree with these. So it has to do with the constitutional authority for the federal government regarding gun legislation. So let me walk you through here. Here's the first one. Natural law dictates that freedom from tyranny and self-defense are unalienable rights. Therefore, no government can infringe upon those rights. Do you agree with that? Number 2, the Constitution does not authorize the federal government to regulate guns. Therefore, without explicit authorization, the issue remains within the domain of each of the several states. The states' rights. Do you agree with that? Number 3, the Second Amendment was written to ensure that no doubt can remain regarding the federal government's inability to regulate guns. Is that right? Now, kind of as a subheading here under number 3, we'll talk about the Second Amendment. I know you all know what it says, but I want to emphasize a little different piece of it. So, it starts with a well-regulated militia. And who is the well-regulated militia? Who is the militia? We are. And is this or is this not the safest place in the state of Ohio right now today, right? Absolutely. So, yeah, well-regulated militia. And I want to emphasize this next clause. Being necessary to the security of a free state. Does that have anything to do with turkey hunting? No, it's about the security of a free state. It's about liberty and tyranny. That is why the Second Amendment was written, to make sure we don't have a King George or a King whoever that's going to be a tyrannical dictator. The words, and then this gets into number 4. So the last part of the Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Those words shall not be infringed can only be found in the Second Amendment. Those words make it absolutely ironclad that the federal government cannot regulate guns. Do you agree with that? And finally, number 5. So you hear this argument. The Second Amendment, they didn't have AR-15s. They didn't have, these military-style assault weapons, whatever the hell that means. All they had was muskets back then. Muskets. That's what the Second Amendment protects, muskets. Okay. Really? Well, maybe you don't know this, because this is kind of a little-known fact. I had to research it myself, because I didn't know until I started looking into it. Back during the time that the Constitution was written and the Second Amendment was accepted, the world's most advanced weapons of war, which at that time were battleships, were privately owned. And that remained true up to, including, and beyond the War of 1812. If battleships, the most advanced weapons of war, could be in the hands of private citizens, if that were true when the Constitution was written, has the Constitution changed? Then it's also true today. So the federal government has no ability, now I would say the states do, but the federal government has no ability to infringe on any of these rights of Americans, including battleships for that matter. Do you agree with that? So that fact removes any shadow of a doubt regarding an individual's unrestricted right to bear arms. Then I just want to say about AR-15s. Do we need AR-15s? I would argue the answer is yes, and the reason for this is they are required to maintain the republic, ward off tyranny, and guarantee liberty. Do you agree with that? And with that, I'm going to give you Tom Brickman. Give Tom a big hand.
Well, thank you guys for all coming here, ladies, gentlemen. Safest place in the state of Ohio right now, as many of the speakers have stated. I wanted to say three things that I want to call out. First of all, Chris Dora does a great job. He's an advocate up here. He's been here all the time. He does his little videos. I watch his little videos. Kind of great to hear what he has to say, especially when I got to do a little paperwork or something at the computer. Ron Hood has been fighting this fight from back in the early 90s when he first came here. He passed it on to me. We did it. I did it for a while solo. He came back into the legislature, picked it up again. They allow us to do joint sponsors now. Proud to be able to do it with him. It is the first time it's passed a committee. And here's the thing. We have other states in this nation who have now got constitutional carry, not just Vermont. So we need to get with it and keep it moving. So we appreciate all your support. It couldn't have been done without Chairman Becker. Chairman Becker ran an efficient committee. He let everybody have their say, and we passed it. And believe me, we had to fight a lot of Republicans. A lot of Republicans tried to put up some really stupid, we have to pass out little brochures. We had to do things, all sorts of crazy stuff. And we were able to stop that. So we got it passed. Now, my message is going to be a little different. On Tuesday, I came up here and got the mail. I'd been gone for a month. I had one letter. One in 1 month. One letter. And it was written about some tax ramifications of the budget. We just don't get a lot of letters. But I read that letter. And the time before, I think I got 2 letters. And I read them. And I acted on them. We really just don't get that much from you folks, or from any of the folks in the state of Ohio. And my point is that when you do write, we listen. We hear you. I'm not talking about pushing a button so we get 100 emails that say the exact same thing except there's a different name and address on the bottom. I'm talking about going home and typing a letter and drop it in the snail mail and send it. The effect is unbelievable. I've seen my colleagues get 3 letters on an issue and be physically shaken. I remember getting 3 letters on something that had to do with foster kids back a few years ago, and I'm like, what's going on? I don't know anything about this issue. Why are people writing me? This must be a big issue. It had an effect on me. So what I'm encouraging you to do, and not necessarily go home today, but when Chris says we need to write a letter, this bill's going, actually get down there, type it out. It doesn't have to be handwritten, although handwritten is pretty effective. I'm telling you, it really is, because that meant you sat down and you made a point. And you're probably a voter. Love that. Voting is my superpower. That rattles them like nothing else. I'm one of the few people who has knocked off an incumbent in the Ohio State House. I did it with about 12 people willing to work. Look at this. Look at this. You could knock off 20 or 25 of them by doing the work. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Listen, contact, stay in touch. I had someone come up to me and say, well, how would somebody meet you? Well, send me an email. We'll meet at a Panera. We'll meet at the library, and we'll talk. Reach out to your representatives. Do that to them. Now, there are some out there that are afraid of their own shadow, and they'll try to run and avoid and get away from you as much as they can, but eventually they got to be out in the public sometime. And let Chris Dora him know that they're not willing to meet with you, and you'll get in front of them. So I can't emphasize enough, you're being willing to reach out. Remember what Patrick Henry said. Of course, I might just be telling it was him, and it might have been Mark Twain or Thomas Jefferson, although I like Thomas Jefferson saying, the tree of liberty must be occasionally watered with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Don't forget that. It does. Sometimes we have to do that. But I think Patrick Henry said the price of liberty is constant vigilance, and that's part of writing the letter, reaching out, staying involved, paying your dues, answering when Chris makes the call or when we do, because sometimes we need you to vote for us, you know? We need you. And if you do that, I think we'll be extremely successful in, number one, moving constitutional carry ahead, and number two, stopping these ridiculous and stupid proposals that haven't even been put in writing yet, and not agreeing to something, and we're stopping them to make sure we can keep our freedoms here in the state of Ohio. Thank you very much.
Give it up for all four of those guys, or that's a I use that in a non-binary sense. Ron Hood, Tom Brinkman, John Becker, and Candice Keller. One more time, folks. While I was down there just a few minutes ago, I was reminded of one person's name that I left out of the cast of characters that is lined up to assault our gun rights. And I would be remiss if I did not mention a terrible, terrible woman. Terrible woman. Her name is Peggy Lehner. Peggy Lehner. She is an absolutely terrible lady in the Senate over here. I think she's termed out, which is why she is likely going to be the bill sponsor for Mike DeWine and everything that we face coming out of the Senate. So just remember her name as we proceed forward here in the weeks and months ahead. I'm going to introduce one of only two left, folks. Two left. Please bear with us. I'm going to introduce Dave Riegel. There he is. Smart guy. Okay, he's always the smart guy. He's standing up there in the shade. But he's another one of those guys from OFCC where, you know, I always kind of view people with suspicion, and then all of a sudden we sit down at a table together, and we find out, oh, hey, we are all on the same team, and now if any of our legislation or the legislation that we are both working on collectively together, if I think I'm not reading it right, this is Ohio's probably preeminent ORC expert. So Dave Riegel from OFCC.
Hey, thank you. Now, those of you that know me know I'm not a politician, and I'm not a professional speaker, so you'll forgive me because I've got my notes right here. But I was asked to speak to this event, and I had to think for a minute. I mean, the closest I get to politics is when we have our advocacy days and we go down into the State House and we try to convince those politicians that their positions need to be better as far as Ohio gun rights go. And the closest I get to making speeches is when I give updates on legislation like I did at the OFCC party in the park last month. But I realize that's not what we need here today. We need less of politicians and less of polished public speakers and more normal, everyday people with a passion about our cause. So here I am. And don't worry. Those of you expecting me to give a long, boring analysis of recently passed or pending bills can relax. That's not what I want to talk about today. No, what I want to talk about today is freedom, liberty. This great country of ours was founded on those principles, and our founding fathers understood them well. They not only understood the concepts of freedom and liberty, they understood that there's a stark contrast between liberty and servitude. between freedom and slavery. Both Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson expressed their preference for liberty and freedom and their disdain for those who would trade them for safety. You know the quotes. Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Am I right? And Thomas Jefferson included a Latin phrase in a letter he wrote to James Madison that roughly translates to, "I prefer the tumult of liberty to the quiet of servitude." But maybe an even better translation, one that maybe you know better than that, is, "I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery." And I've seen it on the back of some t-shirts out there right now, so I know you're all with me in this. These men and others like them helped form our nation. They devoted and risked their lives to make sure that this new country would be established and built on a foundation of freedom and liberty. The liberty to live as free men, beholden to no man. The freedom to live our lives as we see fit without government interference. And to that end, they crafted what is perhaps the most wonderful, the most compelling, and timeless document, an instrument that spelled out the very form our government would take. They carefully shaped this document that we call the Constitution of the United States of America in such a way that it preserved those freedoms and liberties and guarded them from government control and intervention as best as they could. And yet, some saw that it wasn't enough. It didn't go far enough to rein in and restrict government, so they added the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution to further define and protect our rights and our freedoms. And I'm sure we're all familiar with those safeguards of liberty, especially the First Amendment that protects our freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and freedom of assembly. A freedom we're exercising here today to make sure our representatives in the Ohio government hear our voices and know our grievances. And of course, the Second Amendment, which protects our individual right to keep and bear arms, another freedom that most, if not all of us, are exercising today. But you know, we can't forget the next few amendments, which are safeguards of justice, protections against unreasonable searches and seizures, against punishment without due process of law, against trials held in secret, and the right to face our accusers, and even beyond the Bill of Rights, amendments like the 14th Amendment that protects and prohibits the government from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And yet, in the over 240 years since then, there have been those that seek to subvert those freedoms and to end those liberties, pecking away at our rights, stripping away our freedoms bit by bit and piece by piece. And over the last 100 years, that has taken the form of a sustained attack on our right to keep and bear arms. The National Firearms Act of 1934, commonly referred to the NFA. The Federal Firearms Act of 1938. The Gun Control Act of 1968. The formation of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in 1972. That's right, let me hear what you think of these. The Gun-Free School Zones Act. The Hughes Amendment. The Brady Bill, the assault weapons ban of 1994, and most recently there's been a push for universal background checks and red flag laws. And that's what brings us here today, in a united effort to stand firm against these unconstitutional attacks on our freedom and our liberty. These so-called red flag laws are a blatant attack on our rights. Not just the obvious attack. That's right. And it's not just the obvious attack on our right to keep and bear arms, but these are attacks on many of our other rights as well. They trample on the 5th and 14th Amendment protections against being deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And when I mean due process of law, I'm not talking about a judge behind a bench making a ruling that says, oh, you could be a danger to yourself or others. No, I'm talking about the requirement that we be charged with or convicted of a crime before our rights are taken away from us. These red flag laws violate the 6th Amendment protection against secret proceedings and the right to face our accusers because they allow ex parte hearings where a citizen is not even present at the hearing and is unable to present a defense while his firearm rights are being stripped from him. They're vulnerable to abuse by personal and political adversaries. They're vulnerable to abuse by certain judges who have already demonstrated a clear bias against the Second Amendment. And they are rightly opposed by hundreds of local sheriffs and prosecutors because they understand that these laws are unconstitutional. And the list of problems with these laws goes on and on and on. But what is worse is the indisputable fact that they just don't work. There was an exhaustive study conducted in 2018 by John Lott, Dr. John Lott of the Crime Prevention Research Center, and he concluded that red flag laws had no significant effect on murder, suicide, the number of people killed in mass public shootings, robbery, aggravated assault, or burglary. And that really is the crux of the matter. Gun control laws just don't work, period. Am I right? All you have to do is look at the facts. From the 1960s up through the 80s, there was a clear trend. Although they were passing more and more gun control laws, some of them we've already mentioned, the crime rate was steadily increasing. The violent crime rate was increasing faster than it ever had before. And then something happened. In 1987, Florida passed their shall issue concealed carry law, and violent crime in Florida began to decrease. And as more licenses were issued, the crime rate continued to decrease. Other states saw this and adopted similar laws, and in those states, the crime rate also began to stabilize and to decrease. But at the same time, other states held on to their strict controls against citizens lawfully carrying firearms for self-defense, and they saw their crime rates continue to increase. And today, although the national violent crime rate is decreasing, there are still places where violent crime continues to increase. And you can see that trend most notably in some of the big cities under the control of the left, who cling to their strict gun control laws. Cities like Chicago, D.C., L.A., and many others. And it should be obvious to all who open their eyes and see what is happening that this is a societal problem. And the bottom line is there is no legislative solution for a societal problem. That trying to fix this problem with universal background checks and red flag laws just won't work. That is the message we need to send our governor, our senators, our representatives. And that is why we are here today, to get that message out to them loud and clear. I thank each and every one of you that took the time to join us today. I know some of you had to take time off from work. Some of you have come from the four corners of this state through long drives and traffic and, well, you know, it is construction season. And I encourage every one of you to contact your senators, your representatives, and our governor, and let them hear that message from you personally by phone calls, And that is the most effective way to reach these politicians. Email is good. Calls are good. And I'm sure most of the representatives also have them. But that personal letter, the one that you put in an envelope and put a stamp on and handwrite your address on and send it in to them, that is something to pay attention to. You just heard one of our politicians say that very thing. There have got to be 500 or 600 of us out here today. 20 letters, 500 or 600 people. Somebody do the math. 12,000 letters landing on the State House over this next week. Can we do that? I know I can, and I know you can as well. Like our forefathers did, let's all fight to preserve and restore our freedoms and our liberty. Thank you very much.
Last one. I hope I saved the best for last. I'm pretty sure I did. But I'm going to introduce to you my brother, Ben Dora. Now, he hails from the communist state of Minnesota. He's probably drinking a Coke, you know. I'll not get into Minnesota jokes. But I'm going to let him tell you just how effective everything we're talking about here, about the emails, about the Facebook messages, about the mobilization that we're talking about. I'm going to let him do a quick summary on exactly what this looks like, what the results look like, and how effective it could be. Again, Ben Dora, my brother who runs Minnesota Gun Rights, come up here and tell us how it is.
Oh, you betcha, yeah. Guys, I'm extremely happy to be here. Again, I'm Ben Dora. I'm the Executive Director of Minnesota Gun Rights, which, for those of you who don't know, was actually started by Chris a long, long time ago. He's been very useful in the fight for gun rights in Minnesota. You guys have heard all about red flag laws. You've heard all about stand your ground, constitutional carry. You've been told to contact your lawmakers. But I'm going to give you a real quick story from the land of Ilhan Omar. It involves a few losers and an army of winners that are the members and supporters of Minnesota gun rights. Guys, I'm going to go right back to the 2018 elections. After the November elections in 2018, national news media was pointing straight at Minnesota going, it's the worst state. It had the greatest upheaval as Democrats took 18 House seats and flipped the Minnesota House into Democrat control and put our wretched governor, Tim Walz, into office in Minnesota. We had a one-vote Republican majority in the Senate. And if you think that your Senate Republicans are bad, you have no idea how bad Minnesota Senate Republicans are. They're the greatest rhinos in America. And so all of the national news media was sitting there saying Minnesota is going to be the first Midwest state to fall. Minnesota is toast. Michael Bloomberg was funneling millions and millions of dollars into Minnesota. They wanted red flag gun confiscations. They wanted universal gun registration. And they had a bill that was introduced that would literally totally gut the Second Amendment. You wouldn't even be able to own a .22 rifle by the time it was done. This is what the Democrats and the Republicans were pushing in Minnesota. They said Minnesota's toast, and when Minnesota falls, the rest are going to fall. Wisconsin's going to fall, and Iowa's going to fall. Ohio is going to fall once we crack the nut at Minnesota. So I met with the Senate Majority Leader. Some of you know his name. We call him Mr. Rogers because he's one of those, won't you please be my neighbor kind of guys. His name's Paul Gazelka. He was the Senate Majority Leader. I met with him in January of this year, right when session was kicking off, and I said, what are you going to do for gun owners? He said, what do you want? Give us a list. So I gave him a list. I said, I want you to kill red flag gun seizures. I want you to kill universal gun registration. I want you to pass stand your ground law out of your Senate. And I want you to actually, I don't know, say something that even resembles pro-gun defense. And he says, Oh, we're not going to do any of that. We're not going to do any of that. He ran down the hall. He literally sprinted away from me in the Minnesota Senate office building, said, we, the one vote Senate Republican majority, aren't going to do a dang thing for gun owners in Minnesota. Well, I hopped on the phone with Chris. That's what I did. And, well, what happened? Session kicked off. They introduced their bills. Moms demand action. Every town for gun safety. We're door-knocking districts. They had a massive, massive rally at the Capitol, multiple rallies. It looked like all hope was lost. There was not a single solitary Republican. I mean, people like Candice, Keller, they don't exist in Minnesota. They don't exist. In fact, when we had our gun rights rally, we didn't have a single representative standing up there because not a single person in the entire state would stand up in defense of our constitutional rights. And so, what did we do at Minnesota Gun Rights? We did what Chris is doing here with Ohio gun owners, and we unleashed gun owners on the anti-gunners in the Minnesota legislature. We unleashed the power of the grassroots in the state of Minnesota and crushed their gun control initiatives. The members of Minnesota Gun Rights, again, this is all matters because what happens in one state affects what happens in another. Right now, the gun owners of Minnesota are praying to dear God that you guys are successful at stopping this gun control in Ohio. Because if gun owners don't stop it here, Minnesota is toast. We're toast. Because after Florida passed red flag gun seizures, I can't tell you how many anti-gun lawmakers stood up in Minnesota committees and said, come on, if a red state like Florida can pass these common sense, public safety initiatives, surely the Republicans and Democrats can come together in Minnesota and do the same. If Ohio, a red state under Mike DeLuzer-Wine, passes this stuff, so many states are going to fall. It depends on you to stop this gun control in Ohio. And so the members and supporters of Minnesota Gun Rights sent 120,000 emails into the legislature between January and May. I'm going to get knocked on the head by this banner over here yet. 120,000 emails and scared the crap out of those people. We had multiple state senators said we have never received this much communication on any issue during any legislative session ever that anybody in the Minnesota legislature can remember. Tens and tens and tens of thousands of phone calls went into the Minnesota legislature, 120,000 emails, tens of thousands of petitions, a rally on the Capitol steps, and when it was done, the gun owners of Minnesota stopped red flag gun seizures and universal gun registration. In the land of Ilhan Omar. It was a titanic feat. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. Session ended. I wanted to just fall to my knees, thank God, and thank the members of Minnesota Gun Rights, thank the gun owners who stood up and fought for their freedoms. That's what you need to do here now. Because as you guys know, and as we know in Minnesota, it doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats. If they're anti-gun, they are anti-gun. If they can pass the stuff, they're going to pass it. There is no safety in Team R versus Team D anymore in America because all too often they look exactly the same when it comes to gun control. And I'll tell you, I was on the phone with Chris sometimes hourly last February, March, and April. It was an incredible, He guided so much of what we did in Minnesota, working with us. He came and spoke at our rally in the Minnesota legislature. The tactics that Chris is employing with Ohio gun owners and with you guys fighting your tails off, that is what's going to save gun rights in the state of Ohio. And that's it. The tactics work. But they only work if you have the people. You can only win if you have the people. So will you fight for your gun rights? And like I said, Minnesotans, so many Minnesotans are watching. We're streaming this on the Minnesota Gun Rights Facebook page as well. A lot of Minnesotans are paying attention to what's happening here today. And like I said, they are praying that you guys are successful at stopping this stuff in Ohio. Because if you don't, boy, it's going to be really, really hard to stop this stuff in 2020 when session kicks off again in the state of Minnesota. So I ask you again, will you fight? All we want is freedom. All we want is to be left alone by governments who think they know what's best for you, what's best for me. They treat you like pawns. They treat you like fools. You're too stupid to run your own lives. You're too stupid to own those guns. Leave it to Mike DeWine. He'll do it for you. Try death to tyrants. Death to tyrants, folks. We owe it to our ancestors. We owe it to our children. We owe it to the future generations of this beautiful country to preserve this, the last best hope of freedom on earth. Will you fight? Then join Ohio gun owners today. Join up and fight. Become, if you're not already, the grassroots army that this state so desperately needs. Stand in the gap for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your neighbors, your communities, and the freedom that we love and hold so dear. Join us and fight. Join Ohio gun owners. God bless you. God bless Ohio, and God bless America.
Well, folks, like we've said a couple times so far, today's rally is about the optics, and it's about externalizing everything that happened here. We've said it till we're blue in the face. The fake news media will never cover the conservative agenda. They'll never cover gun rights. They'll never do anything like that. So please make sure, when you go home, on your way home, make sure you upload those photos into the event page today. We will use this stuff to push this out into legislative districts for the next several years to come. So please upload this stuff, post it on your own Facebook pages, tag your legislators in the comments. That's what this is all about. And I'm here to promise you, we will hold these people accountable for everything they do to us. We will never back down. We will never surrender. We will never quit. And God bless you all, and thank you for coming. And the final word from Chuck LaRosa.
Don't go away.
I hate you.
That's okay. Hate me anyway. Can you hear me out there? Is this thing on?
Hold it a little closer.
Got to hold it a little closer, he says. Every year, OFCC gives an award to an outstanding activist. And Gary's going to make a presentation right now. Are you ready?
Thank you, Chuck. The Tony Gordon Award was developed to honor the life of Anthony Tony Gordon. In 2003, he was with his then 13-year-old nephew in Dayton, Ohio. There was an attempted carjacking of him and his nephew. He wasn't going to let that happen. Although he was mortally wounded, he got his nephew to safety before he died. His family said, we're not going to blame the gun for that the perpetrator used. We want to make sure that this type of thing doesn't happen again. We want to make sure that people have an out when this type of situation occurs. They were instrumental to work with OFCC in getting concealed carry passed in Ohio in 2004. At the 2004 OFCC picnic in the park, the first annual Tony Gordon Award was presented. It was presented to his family. It is given to a person who goes above and beyond the work for gun rights in the state. Tony certainly did that. It's given every year. This year, the award is going to, before I say who it's going to go to, I think we know, I want to say I have had the very, very distinct pleasure of working with this guy on a couple bills and writing bills, and he is dedicated. He's all for Ohio and gun rights. This year's Tony Gordon Award goes to Chris Dora. Very well deserved.
The significant thing about the Tony Gordon Award to me is that at the time we were trying to get it passed, law enforcement was throwing every poison pill they could imagine at the bill. One of those poison pills was that you could not carry a gun in a car if there was a minor in it, which is silly. When we talked to them about it, the State Highway Patrol told us that you're in a car, you can just drive away. That was the only thing Tony Gordon was able to do.
Well, I've never won anything in my life.
Can't say that anymore.
And I can't say that anymore, thanks to these guys. I meant every word I said earlier when I said that it's a real pleasure to work with both of these people. I'll admit that I was one of those skeptics who, didn't know what everybody's motivations were. But like I said, all it took was that one meeting where we finally sat down and cleared the air. And it's been a real pleasure to work with Chuck and with Gary and with Dave back there at the OFCC table. It's been a real pleasure to work with them. We've hammered out some fabulous legislation. Some of that legislation that we've used here in Ohio has gone on to other states and become law in those other states based on the meetings that we sit down and have. And one thing I like about these guys is that when we're here for these committee meetings like House Bill 228 last year, where we know that people like Jim Irvine are in the room making the deal where they're pulling out the duty to retreat repealer, where they're making sure that we still have to retreat if we're attacked in a public place. When they are in there making those deals, all I have to do is talk with these guys, and I know that there's no chance in HE double hockey sticks, again, that they will sign off on making a deal like that. And it makes it supremely pleasurable to work with them in our common goal of defending gun rights. So this is a real honor for me to get this from OFCC. They're Ohio's oldest gun rights organization, and I'm dang proud on behalf of Ohio gun owners to work with these gentlemen. Thank you so much for this honor. And that's all I've got, everybody. Like I said, let's go forth from here. This is the start of what making the deal where they're pulling out the duty to retreat repealer, where they're making sure that we still have to retreat if we're attacked in a public place. When they are in there making those deals, all I have to do is talk with these guys, and I know that there's no chance in HE double hockey sticks, again, that they will sign off on making a deal like that. And it makes it supremely pleasurable to work with them in our common goal of defending gun rights. So this is a real honor for me to get this from OFCC. They're Ohio's oldest gun rights organization, and I'm dang proud on behalf of Ohio gun owners to work with these gentlemen. Thank you so much for this honor. And that's all I've got, everybody. Like I said, let's go forth from here. This is the start of the gun rights defense that we are getting ready to mount. God bless you all. I love you. I love your signs. And we'll see you all again on the next video. Thank you so much for being
very much.
Sure. Thanks.
It's a direct flight, an hour and 15 minutes in the air. No, it's funny because Chris asked me, he said, where's your layover? Direct flight. Direct flight? I said, I've never not had a direct flight. Every flight I've ever flown on for my whole life has been a direct flight. There's been no layover. And I've been all over the country for this stuff. And Chris was not pleased about that.
I usually end up having to go to Chicago to go to Denver. Haven't done that in a couple of years. Chicago
Well, there was by my estimation 700 people standing in line for TSA in Minneapolis when I was transiting. And I did not have a lot of time, so I cut from about 500 to 50 of them. And but I was standing in line, I messaged Chris, and I said, I'm never flying again without TSA. Please take my fingerprints, I don't care. So.
Denver is the guy that instituted the security in Denver. He was actually buying the position of NSA. Yeah. So their security is like, I mean, you got to be there 3 hours before you need to think about boarding. But it's a beautiful Denver.
I think I'd rather ride.
You're going south.
Chris loves it.
I like to see all the people, and I usually strike up a conversation, and then I have a great time, and I'm glad I did it. I don't mind flying.
Really?
Yeah, when I took my kids to Florida, and we actually started to Niagara Falls, and then we flew to Florida. And it was funny because it was snowing in Niagara Falls, and then it was like 80 degrees in Tampa. But
what's really cool in Minnesota, I was dressed nice and warm, and I hopped up the plane yesterday. Couldn't breathe when I came out. Oh, I know.
yeah, so we went to land. We flew to St. Clearwater Airport, and the approach is right over to the lake.
Well, nice meeting you.
So when it banked, all I saw out of my window was water. And then the plane righted, and we're right even with the bridge. Yeah, all right, I'll let you visit.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Did you and your brother?
I'm sorry? Like your nice Marv song shirt.
I was here last time. Yeah, he's here too. Yeah, it was probably Matt you're remembering when I was here doing what I was doing today, running cameras. Absolutely.
We love this.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for coming out.
Anybody that comes in and says, hold a revolver, I'll be like that. Maybe some of their semis got the revolver. Can't grab all of it. Right. It's his flag, yeah.
Well, when I bought it, the guy here, I bought this today. I walked in, I wanted to see if he said, please, take my name. Now that courthouse is straight to I
Well, there are still 90 of you watching right now, so on behalf of Ohio gun owners and everybody across America who has been watching this video here today, thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of this. Thank you for sharing this video all over the place. It's the grassroots like you who care about and love this country that are going to end up stopping this radical assault on our attacks. And so for now, I'm Chris Dora, the Ohio Gun Owners. Thank you all for being a part of this, and we'll be back with more later on.